Imagine uncovering a secret so powerful it could rewrite everything we thought we knew about our past. That's exactly what Professor Miriam Alvarez just did, deep under ancient ruins. By the end of this video, you'll discover the untold story of a cosmic war that shaped our world and how its echoes might still influence us today. If you're ready to embark on this journey, hit that like button, subscribe for more mind-blowing discoveries, and drop a comment below with your favorite historical mystery. Let's uncover the truth together. Professor Miriam Alvarez inhaled dusty air as she pried open the ancient chest in the dimly lit chamber. She and her small team of archaeologists had ventured deep under the old ruins of what many believe to be a pre-Diluvian temple complex. After months of excavation, they finally reached a sealed vault buried beneath collapsed stone pillars. Inside the worn chest lay a manuscript unlike any they had ever seen. The scrolls, painstakingly preserved in a clay cylinder, were wrapped in layers of linen. Miriam's heart pounded as she carefully unfurled the first page. The ink was faded, but astonishingly legible. Written in a language older than Hebrew, perhaps a Proto-Semitic script, she deciphered only fragments at first. Words like Michael, Nephilim, and Fallen. But as she read on, the narrative grew clearer. Here was a story that stretched back 3,000 years, a hidden chronicle that seemed to reveal forbidden chapters of angelic battles and monstrous beings. It claimed that the Archangel Michael had defeated Satan himself not once, but twice. It promised knowledge of a war fought in the unseen realms, one that ended in a cataclysmic flood. Her assistant, David, hovered behind, nervously pointing a flashlight. Together they read passages describing the sons of God who took human wives, birthing savage giants, the Nephilim, who terrorized the ancient world. Miriam's lips tightened as she recognized parallels with the Book of Enoch and fragments of the Dead Sea Scrolls. Yet this text was older, deeper, and more explicit. In that damp subterranean hush, Miriam realized these brittle pages held a secret, the hidden deeds of Michael, the command given to him by the Almighty to purge corruption and restore balance. They would soon bear witness to the greatest celestial conflict of antiquity. She turned the page, and the ancient story began to unfold. As Miriam began to read aloud the translated text, the narrative whisked their imaginations back to an ancient time. The manuscript spoke of an era before the Great Flood, when men multiplied across the land. In these primordial days, towering cities gleamed under a fiery sun, and humankind's pride swelled. It was then, the text said, that certain angels, called Watchers, descended from their heavenly posts. They arrived in secrecy, some drawn by earthly beauty, others seduced by ambition. Adopting human forms, they intermingled with mortal women. From these forbidden unions emerged the Nephilim, terrible giants who strode across fields of grain like colossi. They used their might to dominate others, building tyrannical kingdoms and performing acts of cruelty. Soon, the world trembled under their shadow. Within this ancient drama, the scroll named one angel above all others, Michael, an archangel loyal to the highest. He observed the corruption spreading like dark ink spilled across parchment. The Creator looked down, grieved by human wickedness and angelic rebellion, and commanded Michael, "Purge the earth of these hybrids, cleanse the soil of unholy seed." The stage was set for a conflict that would pit celestial forces against monstrous giants. Miriam's voice grew hushed as she read of Michael's stature and might. Described as a pillar of lightning set against the dusk, he did not venture forth alone. Gabriel, Raphael, Uriel, and other loyal angels prepared to confront their wayward brethren. The text described them forging radiant weapons of divine energy and whispering prayers that made the ground tremble. David, leaning forward, felt chills creep up his spine. The story felt both mythic and strangely believable. If these angels and giants had truly shaped humanity's past, it meant our very civilization was erected on the ashes of a forgotten war. Miriam paused before continuing. The scroll's next section recounted the origins of the Watchers' rebellion. They were once guardians, sent to guide human destinies and protect mortal souls. Yet some yearned for power and knowledge not granted to them. They envied humankind's capacity for growth, creativity, and love. Before long, they conspired under a clandestine oath, led astray by a powerful angel named Azazel. They secretly taught humans forbidden arts, making weapons from iron and war machines from bronze. They revealed hidden mysteries, sorceries, potions, and deadly poisons. Humanity, so recently innocent, swiftly embraced these dark gifts, waging war and indulging in reckless pride. Crops withered under the roar of battle chariots, and rivers turned red from slaughter. The Nephilim, towering over ordinary men, established dominions and demanded worship. Statues rose, depicting these giants as gods, and trembling mortals sacrificed animals, and sometimes people, to appease their monstrous lords. The Creator's heart, the text claimed, grew heavy. He saw how far his creation had fallen. He called Michael and said, "Behold the ruin wrought by these fallen ones. Go forth and set things aright." Michael nodded solemnly, for he was a champion of divine justice, undefeated in truth and loyalty. He rallied the faithful angels, each a blazing star. They prepared to confront the Watchers, who had long since forgotten their duty. There would be a great clash, not merely of swords but of destinies. The fate of the world hinged upon Michael's firm hand. He would become a warrior judge, leading an army from heaven's high gates down into the murk and chaos of a corrupted earth. Miriam swallowed hard. The words felt alive, charged with ancient tension. This was not a simple myth. Perhaps it captured truths woven into the world's oldest traditions. She turned the page, eager to learn how the struggle would unfold. The ancient manuscript described how the loyal angels descended from on high, their wings shimmering with an inner light. They scattered across the earth like meteors, searching out the enclaves where the Watchers taught humans cruelty and cunning. In remote mountain strongholds, Michael confronted rebellious leaders, and in hidden groves he bound them with chains of radiant energy. It was not a swift endeavor. The Watchers were cunning. They concealed themselves behind mortal thrones, whispering in the ears of kings. They commanded armies of men loyal to their dark cause, and the Nephilim stood guard over forbidden altars. For every Watcher Michael seized, another vanished into secret caverns. Yet the archangel persisted, guided by unwavering faith. He wielded a sword of burning light that cleaved illusions and struck terror into evil hearts. In the text, it said that as Michael pressed forward, the earth itself groaned, forests trembled, seas churned, and storm clouds gathered. The Creator was preparing a cleansing flood. But first, the corruption must be unveiled and its source contained. The fallen angels, once so proud, began to panic. They sensed the Creator's wrath building like a distant tidal wave. Miriam read how Michael stood atop a high cliff overlooking a valley swarming with monstrous hybrids. The Nephilim raided villages, capturing slaves and demanding tribute. Nearby, Watchers plotted in silence. Michael's presence ignited a divine radiance across the sky, as if the heavens themselves watched in anticipation. Then, lifting his sword, Michael called out in a voice that shook the mountains, "By the authority of the Most High, I declare your works ended." David gripped Miriam's shoulder. The text's intensity was palpable. In that ancient moment, unimaginable forces teetered at the brink. They both wondered what hidden details the manuscript would reveal next about the final confrontation. The manuscript now detailed the first great clash, Michael's host descending like a storm of silver spears. Gabriel, stern and unwavering, confronted a band of Watchers who commanded warlords. With a horn blast that resounded through centuries, Gabriel and his attendants shattered enemy lines. Raphael, the gentle healer turned warrior, cornered Nephilim tribes and offered them mercy if they would surrender. Most laughed and charged forward, eager for blood. Raphael's wrath burned bright, and with swift strikes, he toppled giants who had never known defeat. Uriel, the keeper of celestial lights, guided forces at night, his eyes radiating a cool white glow that pierced darkness. Together they cornered Azazel in a deep canyon. The fallen angel spat curses, conjuring illusions of terror. But Uriel's calm gaze and Michael's resolute blade dispelled every deceit. bound in chains of pure starlight. Azazel howled. Meanwhile, the Nephilim leader, a giant named Mahon, rose from his makeshift throne of bones. He towered twice as tall as lesser giants, bearing armor carved from black basalt. He wielded a massive club studded with iron spikes. As Michael advanced, Mahon's roar shook stones loose from cliffs. The battle that followed was said to last for days. Michael's sword met Mahon's club in thunderous clashes. The very ground beneath them fractured, revealing glowing veins of hidden power. Miriam read all this with wide eyes, marveling at the detail. The text claimed that from this battle, rivers were diverted, mountains scarred. The angels fought tirelessly, sustained by divine grace. The giants and their evil allies staggered. Still, they resisted, desperate to maintain their stolen dominion. It was a conflict that would shape the very soul of the earth. In the musty silence of the underground chamber, Miriam whispered, "This was no mere legend. It feels like history, hidden and eternal." The manuscript turned to a more somber chapter. Despite the bravery of Michael and his brethren, evil still clung to the world like a stubborn blight. The Watchers, though diminished, continued to sow discord. The Nephilim waged guerrilla warfare, ambushing those loyal to the Creator. Humanity, confused and frightened, fell into despair. Many mortals no longer knew whom to trust. Rumors spread like wildfire, and temples once dedicated to the Most High now stood empty, looted, or defaced. Michael labored day and night. Though angels did not tire as mortals did, he understood that physical battles alone would not suffice. Hearts needed changing, and faith needed rekindling. The Creator, patient but resolute, prepared a more thorough cleansing. The text described how a man named Noah found favor with God. Noah was a righteous soul, untainted by the corruption around him. Through him, hope would be preserved. The angels guarded Noah's household. They guided his hands as he shaped planks of gopher wood into a mighty ark. The project drew scorn and laughter from those who refused to believe in any coming judgment. Yet Michael saw beyond their mockery. He knew a turning point approached. When the great floods would come, the world's wickedness would be washed away, leaving a seed of righteousness to sprout anew. Amidst these preparations, Michael persisted in his mission. He captured elusive watchers who lurked in abandoned temples. He forced them to kneel and face their sentence. Some cried for mercy, but mercy could not erase the atrocities they had committed. Others spat defiance, even as chains dragged them into cavernous prisons beneath the earth, awaiting final judgment. Miriam and David imagined Michael's stern face, a beacon of unwavering justice, as he continued his holy work before the deluge. In those final days before the flood, the manuscript described how Michael confronted Satan's influence. The text hinted that Satan, cast down from heaven long before, had never ceased his subtle workings. He wove deceit like a spider's web, entangling angels and humans alike in chains of arrogance and rebellion. Michael understood that Satan's cunning lay not merely in brute force, but in sowing doubt. The archangel recalled the earliest rebellion, a distant age when Lucifer's pride upended celestial harmony. Now, Satan's presence in the world manifested through corrupted souls and false idols. Though Satan himself often remained hidden, his whispers fueled the Nephilim's cruelty and the Watchers' defiance. The text recounted a secret meeting on a starlit plateau. Michael knelt in prayer, his face uplifted to the silent heavens. He sought guidance from the Almighty, who whispered comfort into his spirit. Then, as if summoned by Michael's resolve, Satan appeared in a swirl of dark wind. He wore a veil of shifting shadows and spoke in a voice dripping with contempt. "Why fight this battle?" he mocked. "Why not let these humans falter and burn? You serve an ungrateful creation." Michael's response was unwavering. "I serve truth and justice, not vanity. The Almighty's love is beyond your comprehension." The archangel raised his sword, the blade gleaming with holy fire. Satan sneered and vanished into a black mist, unwilling to engage directly. But the encounter left Michael resolved. He knew the day would come when he must face Satan again, and on that day, he would not yield. Miriam and David paused, considering the layered meanings, a cosmic war, a battle for souls, and the role humanity played. This forgotten scripture placed Michael as a guardian who never abandoned hope, even when evil lurked in every shadow. As the time of judgment neared, Michael and his fellow archangels guided Noah and his family into the ark. The manuscript painted this moment with vivid detail, the sky turning the color of bruised fruit, winds moaning like distant spirits, animals marching in solemn pairs. The earth held its breath, anticipating a cleansing unlike any before or since. The flood began with raindrops tapping on timber, then quickly escalated into cascading torrents. The seas rose, churning with fury, valleys filled with muddy water, forests were uprooted, and entire cities vanished beneath the waves. High in the turbulent heavens, Michael watched through eyes that saw beyond mortal limits. He grieved for the innocents who had suffered under the Nephilim's reign. He grieved, too, for the rebellious angels who had chosen darkness. The faithful angels, suspended in a luminous realm between heaven and earth, bore witness as the sinful civilization washed away. The Creator's plan was not annihilation alone, but renewal. As the ark floated on a world of endless gray water, Michael's thoughts turned inward. He knew the Nephilim's physical forms were drowned, their roaring undone. But what of their spirits? Some believed these dark half-breeds lingered as restless shades, haunting the barren corners of existence. Michael would guard against their return. In these pages, the text lingered on the quiet sorrow of the angels. They understood that violence, even righteous, left scars. Yet they also knew that sometimes, to heal a wound, the infected flesh must be cut away. The flood was that excision, and Michael accepted his role in it. His sword had helped pave the path for a new covenant between God and humanity. Miriam could almost smell the wet timber, taste the salt of tears and rain. She continued reading, drawn deeper into ancient truths. After the floodwaters receded, the manuscript described how Michael and the other archangels assisted in the quiet renewal of life. They guided gentle winds to dry the land. Seeds took root in fresh soil, sprouts unfurling under clearer skies. Noah emerged from the ark into a strange, silent world. The angels watched from a distance as a new chapter in human history began. In these passages, the manuscript dwelt on the grace and patience of the Creator. Despite mankind's failings, he had not forsaken them entirely. Michael, standing atop a newly revealed hill, gazed upon a rainbow that spanned the horizon, an eternal promise of mercy. Behind him, Gabriel and Raphael consoled one another with hushed words. They had waged a fierce battle. Now they tended to the delicate shoots of hope. The fallen angels were confined, bound in hidden cells deep beneath the earth or sealed behind spiritual barriers. The text claimed that Michael had personally overseen these bindings, ensuring no stray watcher escaped to corrupt the new generations. The Nephilim were gone from the world's surface, yet their memory lingered in whispered legends. The manuscript also explained that Michael's vigilance did not end with the flood. For centuries to come, he would watch over humanity, stepping in at critical junctures. He would serve as a protector of nations, a guardian of the faithful, and a herald of divine judgment when necessary. His presence would inspire prophets and strengthen the resolve of those who struggled against darkness. Miriam placed a gentle hand on the fragile page. She thought of all the myths and religious texts that hinted at these cosmic struggles. It was astonishing to hold such a direct account. David glanced at her, awe shining in his eyes. This text changed everything. As Miriam read deeper, the manuscript began to shift its focus. It described how knowledge of these ancient battles and divine interventions began to fade with time. Humans scattered across continents, rebuilding cities, forging new languages, and worshiping in various forms. The memory of angels and Nephilim turned into myth and allegory, vague hints of a once mighty truth. The surviving text insisted that Michael never left mankind. He took on different roles over the ages, guiding prophets like Daniel and protecting chosen peoples. In times of crisis, Michael's presence was felt, even if not always recognized. The faithful prayed to a silent heaven, and sometimes miracles occurred. These subtle nods, the manuscript said, were the archangel's gentle hand. Within centuries, Ancient scrolls like the one Miriam held became relics, hidden or lost. Religious scholars guessed at their contents. The canonical scriptures hinted at these grand dramas, but rarely described them so openly. The reasons were manifold. Perhaps humanity was deemed not ready to bear the full burden of such knowledge. Or perhaps the subtlety allowed faith to grow through trust, not forced revelation. David adjusted the flashlight, careful not to damage the fragile leaves of parchment. Miriam's mind raced. This newfound narrative could rewrite theological understanding. It provided a bridge between the book of Genesis, the legends of Enoch, and the cryptic references in Daniel and Revelation. Here, Michael emerged not merely as a symbolic figure, but as a tangible warrior and guardian. As she turned the pages, Miriam realized the manuscript would soon discuss another monumental confrontation, the final showdown at the end of days, when Michael would face Satan once more. The tension mounted in her chest, as if the old parchment exhaled ancient truths into her modern world. The manuscript began to address the future, an eschatological vision. Miriam's heart fluttered as she deciphered descriptions of a time when evil would again rise to challenge the divine order. It spoke cryptically of a dragon, a serpent of old, who would rally forces of darkness against the faithful. Michael's name appeared again, this time associated with a cosmic battle so intense the stars themselves might tremble. In those future days, the text suggested, humanity would face moral trials and spiritual confusion. False prophets, strange ideologies, and whispers of old horrors would resurface. Chaos and order would collide in unseen realms. Michael would stand as a sentinel, mustering angelic legions to confront Satan directly. This confrontation would dwarf even the ancient struggles against the Nephilim. Miriam felt a chill. She wondered how a 3,000-year-old manuscript could align with later prophetic texts. She recalled verses in Daniel where Michael stands guard over Israel, and in Revelation where Michael battles a dragon. This ancient scroll seemed to prefigure such events, linking them to a grand, unbroken narrative of cosmic warfare. David whispered, "It's like a key, tying together all these scattered references." "This is incredible." Miriam nodded, her mind racing through centuries of religious thought. If made public, this document could ignite debate or even uproot certain interpretations. But the scroll offered hope as well. It emphasized that Michael's victory was not guaranteed by brute force alone, but by the power of righteousness and the resilience of faith. Just as the world was cleansed in the flood, so too would it be purified in the final reckoning. The moral, that no matter how dark times become, the cosmos is shepherded by forces of good, championed by an archangel who has never abandoned his post. The manuscript also shed light on a mysterious figure, the angel of the Lord. This being appeared in cryptic passages, distinct from Michael, Gabriel, or any other named archangel. The angel of the Lord, the text hinted, was a manifestation of divine presence, a guide, a protector, and sometimes a harbinger of profound change. In some instances, it seemed to merge heavenly authority with a personal, almost human empathy. Miriam recalled biblical accounts where the angel of the Lord spoke as if he were God himself, yet remained a separate entity. Scholars long debated this figure, a pre-incarnate form of deity or a supreme messenger carrying the Creator's direct voice. The manuscript did not offer definitive answers, only poetic riddles. It described encounters with the angel of the Lord as if encountering both lightning and gentle rain. In one passage, the manuscript told of a desert night long after the flood, where a wanderer wrestled with a mysterious figure until dawn. Another fragment suggested this angel guided prophets through visions that shaped entire nations. The angel of the Lord was less an agent of warfare and more an instrument of divine revelation. While Michael championed the battlefield, the angel of the Lord brought wisdom and transformation. Miriam sighed softly, struck by the depth of theology hidden in these pages. This ancient scribe had woven a tapestry of faith, weaving threads of justice, mercy, war, and reconciliation into one grand narrative. It was as if the Creator's plan required multiple divine messengers, each fulfilling a unique role in the cosmic drama. David shifted, his boots scraping the stone floor. Outside, muffled by earth and time. Distant rumblings passed, perhaps trucks on a nearby road. Here underground, past and present merged, and the mysterious angel of the Lord hovered just beyond understanding. The manuscript scribe seemed to possess extraordinary knowledge. Who had written it, and why? The text never named its author directly, but it did mention Enoch, a righteous man who walked with God before the flood. It alluded to prophecies preserved by a lineage of wise men who passed sacred knowledge through hidden communities. Miriam wondered if this document could be connected to Enoch's visions. The Book of Enoch, once considered scripture by some Jewish communities, described watchers, giants, and angelic judgments. Now this manuscript seemed to confirm and expand upon those accounts, bridging gaps and clarifying details. The scribe wrote with a conviction that what he recorded would one day be rediscovered by people who needed to understand their past. He addressed future readers, advising them to seek wisdom and not be swayed by cunning lies. Remember the war waged for your sake, one passage read, and know that you are not alone in the storms of your time. David glanced at Miriam, his eyes shining. People say faith and science are separate, but look at what we're holding. This could be a historical anchor for ancient religious truths. Miriam agreed silently. She imagined sharing this discovery with theologians, historians, believers, and skeptics. Each would wrestle with its implications. But first, they must preserve it. The fragile scroll needed careful restoration. Miriam decided to photograph every page. To create digital copies, she resolved to study the manuscript thoroughly before presenting it to the academic world. An immense responsibility settled on her shoulders. This was not just a historical find. It was a key to understanding humanity's spiritual heritage. Outside, the day waned. She and David would soon return to the surface, carrying a secret that might change how people perceive the divine. The manuscript delved deeper into Michael's character. It described him not just as a warrior, but as a protector and mentor. He guided leaders to uphold justice, whispered courage into the hearts of prophets, and shielded the vulnerable from unseen terrors. His blade, though capable of terrible might, remained sheathed when compassion was needed. In one anecdote, the manuscript described Michael's quiet vigil over a family facing starvation in a barren land. With subtle influence, he led them to an oasis few knew existed. In another instance, he stood invisible beside a trembling prophet before a tyrant king, instilling the prophet with unwavering boldness. History's tapestry was woven not only from grand battles, but also gentle interventions. Though Michael was fierce against evil, he grieved for every fallen angel he helped chain. He understood their loss, once glorious beings who strayed from truth. The manuscript suggested that this empathy fueled his strength. While others might fight out of hatred, Michael fought out of love, love for the Creator's vision, for humanity's potential, and even for his fallen kin, whom he could not restore but could at least prevent from causing further harm. Miriam thought of these qualities with admiration. In a world often fixated on violence and vengeance, Michael exemplified a balanced righteousness, stern yet compassionate, relentless yet grieving. His legacy echoed through the ages, shaping how societies understood the nature of divine justice. David, brushing dust from his sleeve, whispered, "This reminds me that sometimes we need guardians, even if we can't see them." Miriam nodded. The manuscript was revealing spiritual dimensions that transcended a single religion or culture. Michael's story belonged to all who yearned for goodness in a flawed world. As Miriam turned the page, she sensed the manuscript nearing its core revelations. In subsequent sections, the manuscript offered insight into how human life after the flood progressed. Freed from the heavy yoke of the Nephilim, people gradually reclaimed their dignity. Simple communities learned to farm, to trade peacefully, and to worship without fear. Michael and the angels watched, intervening only when truly necessary. The scroll spoke of the spread of diverse cultures, each carrying a faint memory of angelic guardians and monstrous threats. The legends of giants found their way into folklore around the world, appearing as trolls, titans, or ogres. The memory of a cleansing flood and a chosen survivor became common motifs in distant civilizations. But the scribe warned that evil did not vanish entirely. Human hearts were free to choose darkness or light. Over time, ambitious leaders, guided by whispering spirits, arose to dominate and oppress. Yet Michael never abandoned humanity. He stood over battles where just kings defended their people. He hovered in silent courts where innocent prisoners needed hope. He tugged at consciences, urging humility and empathy. The angels, abiding by divine law, rarely showed themselves openly. Humanity had to grow, mature, and seek virtue on their own. Nevertheless, the faithful prayed, and sometimes found solace in signs, a gentle breeze at a desperate moment, a sudden insight in times of despair. These, the manuscript suggested, were the subtle fingerprints of angelic ministry. Miriam wondered how this ancient author could foresee the complexity of future cultures. Perhaps he simply recorded timeless truths. Good and evil were not new, nor were they bounded by a single epoch. Michael's watchfulness transcended eras, ensuring that whenever darkness threatened to overshadow the world, a glimmer of divine light remained. The manuscript described specific encounters between Michael and certain prophets. One such account told of Daniel, a wise man in a foreign court, surrounded by intrigue and corruption. Daniel prayed for understanding. Michael appeared in dreams and visions, lending clarity. Daniel recorded his cryptic prophecies in Hebrew, foretelling empires rising and falling, and hinting at unseen wars in the heavens. In these pages, the scroll linked the ancient battles with future struggles. Michael's role as prince and protector of Israel would resonate through centuries. In times of persecution and scattering, the archangel's invisible hand would help preserve faith and identity. Through plagues, exiles, and the restoration of the temple, Michael stood vigil. But the manuscript didn't limit Michael's guardianship to one people. He cared for any who sought truth. When distant sages peered at stars and pondered the divine, Michael's gentle guidance steered them away from superstition toward wisdom. When teachers and philosophers debated morality, Michael inspired those arguments that uplifted the human spirit. Miriam's eyes misted. She had grown up reading scriptures and commentaries. Yet here was a hidden account that tied together countless threads. Michael was no static character. He was a living presence, adapting to each era's challenges. The angels' war against the Nephilim was just one chapter in an ongoing saga. David scribbled notes, overwhelmed by the manuscript's vast scope. This suggests a continuous involvement from ancient times until now, he said. Miriam nodded, realizing that if the manuscript were true, it implied that somewhere, even in the modern age, Michael still watched, maybe in moments of despair or crisis. His subtle influence continued to shape human affairs. The story was far from over. Miriam flipped the page, feeling anticipation build as the scroll approached the heart of its revelations. As Miriam reads about Michael's battles, here's something to ponder. Could these ancient texts be more than myth? If stories of Nephilim and angelic wars carry even a grain of truth, what does that mean for our understanding of history? I'd love to hear your thoughts. Do you believe legends like this are rooted in reality or pure fiction? Share your take in the comments. As Miriam continued reading, the manuscript explored the complexity of free will. It noted that the Creator granted angels and humans alike the power to choose. The Watcher's fall had demonstrated how even divine beings could err if they abandoned their purpose. Humanity's ongoing struggles prove that mortals, too, must learn to cultivate virtue. Michael's guardianship was never about forcing humanity to be good. Rather, it was about offering guidance and protection so that genuine moral growth could occur. The angels cleared the worst obstacles, like the Nephilim, but left humans to make their own choices. This balanced interplay allowed for authentic faith, compassion, and heroism to arise. Miriam found this perspective uplifting. It meant that divine beings, despite their power, respected human agency. Faith would mean little if coerced. Instead, it flourished in an environment of choices, challenges, and the subtle encouragement of unseen friends. David asked quietly, how do we integrate this with modern understanding? So many people think angels are distant myths. but this suggests they have always been near. Just discreet. Miriam nodded. Perhaps the manuscript would inspire a new appreciation for spiritual dimensions, whether people accepted it as historical fact or symbolic truth. The message was the same. Goodness has guardians. Outside, hours had passed. The chamber remained still and musty. Miriam adjusted her reading glasses and continued. She felt a sense of timelessness. This manuscript had waited millennia to speak. Now, it poured its secrets into her mind, as if it had always known she would be the one to find it. The next section appeared to return to the early conflicts, promising more vivid details of Michael's struggle against the Nephilim, perhaps revealing how they were finally vanquished. Miriam leaned in, determined not to miss a single word. The manuscript now revisited the details of Michael's campaign against the Nephilim. It recounted how, after initial victories, some giants retreated into remote mountains and deep caves. They formed enclaves, clinging to life, forging cruel weapons, and training their offspring in secret arts. Though fewer, they became more desperate and savage, raiding small settlements and leaving terror in their wake. Michael, Gabriel, and Raphael strategized. They decided to drive these remnants into one final battleground. Through subtle influence, they guided human warriors to defend their homes more courageously. The angels, though invisible, inspired military leaders with brilliant tactics and infused archers with uncanny aim. In a narrow valley flanked by cliffs of obsidian, the final conflict took shape. Nephilim chieftains massed their forces, boasting of their might and mocking the faint whispers of prayer rising from human camps. But as dawn broke, Michael's presence filled the air, his radiance reflecting on shards of black stone. The angels unleashed a barrage of ethereal spears, shafts of light that pierced even the thickest giant hide. Human warriors, emboldened beyond measure, charged forward. Though terrified, they fought with a righteousness fueled by divine inspiration. The ground shook as giants fell, their cries echoing like fading thunder. Among the last to stand was a Nephilim shaman, chanting curses into the wind. Raphael confronted him, swinging a blade of greenish light that shimmered with healing power twisted to destructive purpose. The shaman's spells dissolved into ash as the angel's blade found its mark. By midday, the valley was silent. The Nephilim, those dark heirs of forbidden unions, lay defeated. The angels hovered above the battlefield, not in triumph but in solemn duty. Humanity was free from this monstrous menace. Miriam imagined that hushed valley, the final sigh of a long, bitter war. After the Nephilim's defeat, Michael and the angels collected what remained of the fallen watchers who had encouraged these horrors. The manuscript described how Michael, with chains forged of heavenly will, dragged them into cavernous prisons beneath the earth. Their roars of defiance and despair reverberated through the stone halls, fading into eternal silence. This was a prelude to their final judgment, yet to come. For now, they would remain bound, no longer free to roam and corrupt. The text noted that these bindings were not merely physical restraints, but spiritual seals tied to cosmic laws. They would hold until the appointed time when all must face the Creator's justice. In the quiet aftermath, humanity stood on the threshold of a new age. Freed from the tyranny of giants, people looked to the sky with cautious hope. They remembered the terror, but also the strange comfort that in their darkest hours, something unseen had fought alongside them. Michael did not linger openly. The angels slipped back into their invisible watch, guiding only through subtle influence. The Creator's plan was not to keep humans as children, always dependent, but to let them grow. With the weight of the Nephilim lifted, mortals could learn, discover, and shape their destiny. Miriam ran her finger lightly over the manuscript's edge. These final battles offered a climax to the ancient saga, yet the text had more to say. The angels' victory was not the end of evil in the world, just the end of a particularly brutal chapter. Humans still had to contend with their own hearts, their capacity for vice and virtue. Still, knowing that Michael had cleared this monstrous threat reaffirmed the notion that the universe, despite its hardships, was not abandoned to chaos. The manuscript addressed the theological question of why a good creator allowed such darkness. It reasoned that free will and growth required risk. Without the possibility of evil, concepts like courage, loyalty, and redemption would have no meaning. By facing these challenges, both natural and supernatural, humanity developed resilience and moral depth. Michael's role was to prevent evil from overwhelming the world entirely, not to eradicate all struggle. Struggle itself could refine the human spirit, awakening virtues that lay dormant. Through battles won and lost, lessons were learned. Through the flood and its aftermath, a new respect for life emerged. Miriam found these reflections profound. She thought about human history, wars, genocides, acts of heroism, and selflessness. Could it be that unseen guardians had gently nudged humanity toward better choices? Even while respecting their freedom, the idea comforted her, painting a universe that cared, even if it rarely showed its face. David murmured, "So the angels are like gardeners, pruning back the worst weeds, but not sterilizing the field." Miriam smiled softly. "Yes, and we must choose to grow into what they hope we can become." The text also reinforced that Michael and the angels were not alone. The Creator's wisdom guided them, and other angelic orders played roles in maintaining the cosmic balance. The universe was vast, and Earth was but one scene in a grand cosmic drama. Miriam's heart stirred with gratitude. She felt privileged to read these words, as if entrusted with a divine whisper across millennia. This knowledge might challenge or uplift others, but it would not leave them unchanged. Turning the page, she sensed the manuscript nearing its conclusion. It had revealed so much: origins of evil, the heroism of angels, the resilience of humankind, and the subtle interplay of faith and freedom. As the manuscript's pages dwindled, it revisited the notion of Michael's future role. Just as he battled giants and bound fallen angels in the distant past, he would once again stand at the forefront of a final confrontation. The text affirmed that in the end times, when darkness again swelled, Michael would lead heavenly hosts against Satan, depicted as a great dragon. Miriam recognized parallels with the Book of Revelation. There, it is said that Michael and his angels wage war against the dragon, casting it down. The manuscript suggested this final battle would not simply be a contest of power, but a culmination of the moral arc of history. Every choice, every trial, every silent prayer would contribute to this grand finale. The text reassured that, though the final days would be challenging, Michael's victory was certain. Yet that certainty was tied to the fidelity of the faithful. Human hearts, shaped by millennia of learning and striving, would tip the scales. Each act of kindness, each stand against injustice, forged spiritual weapons in the invisible war. David marveled at the intimacy of this cosmic vision. "It's as if we are all part of Michael's legion." "In a way," he said. Miriam nodded. The manuscript encouraged readers not to be passive observers, but active participants in the cosmic drama. Whether or not one believed literally in angels and giants, the symbolism remained powerful. Goodness must be chosen and defended. Light filtered into the chamber now, dim but steady. They had worked through the night, and dawn approached. Miriam found it poetic, the rising sun signaling renewal. Just as the manuscript spoke of hope and eventual redemption, she turned another page, eager to see how the author would frame their final words of wisdom. The manuscript began to deliver its concluding teachings. It emphasized that divine beings, despite their power, never replaced human responsibility. If Michael was a champion, he championed a cause that required human cooperation. Angels did not dictate human destiny. They facilitated growth, offered protection, and fought off unimaginable threats. But the final choice always lay with mortal hearts. It also reminded readers that legends of giants and fallen angels were not mere children's tales. They held a mirror to human nature, reflecting how easily one can be lured from virtue by promises of power or forbidden knowledge. In recognizing these patterns, future generations could guard against repeating the same mistakes. Miriam ran her thumb over the fragile parchment. She felt a deep respect for the unknown scribe. This person, living centuries or millennia ago, had taken great care to preserve a truth they believed future ages would need. They recorded the interplay of heaven and earth, of angelic guardianship and human freedom, of wars waged in realms unseen. David's voice was hushed. What do we do with this? Miriam didn't answer immediately. She understood the weight of this discovery. Sharing it would spark debates. Some would dismiss it, others might embrace it, but knowledge had a way of spreading, transforming minds over time. Perhaps that was the scribe's intention. She decided that the manuscript's lessons transcended the question of literal belief. It pointed to universal truths, the enduring struggle between good and evil, the importance of moral choices, the quiet presence of hope. These truths, wrapped in ancient stories, could inspire anyone to live more courageously, more kindly. As Miriam turned the next page, she sensed the final words approaching, like the fading notes of a grand symphony. The penultimate passages described a vision of unity. The manuscript portrayed a day when all beings, angelic and human, would understand their interconnectedness. Evil would not vanish instantly. Rather, it would be outgrown, like a child's fear fading in the comfort of a loving parent's arms. Over countless generations, wisdom would accumulate, reducing the foothold of darkness. In that distant future, Michael's sword might remain sheathed forever. Instead of warfare, there would be celebration. Instead of sorrow, laughter. The text admitted this vision was idealistic, but insisted it was not impossible. With the Creator's guidance, angels' perseverance, and human effort, the world could evolve toward divine harmony. Miriam felt tears gather in her eyes. The manuscript's optimism was surprising, given its accounts of horrific battles and floods. Perhaps the scribe believed that acknowledging past struggles was essential to building hope for the future. If humanity learned from history, both visible and hidden, it could shape a brighter destiny. David placed a hand over his heart, feeling the manuscript's message resonate. They had come searching for relics, and instead, they found a living testament to faith, courage, and grace. He resolved to help Miriam protect and share this knowledge thoughtfully. Miriam turned the page, prepared to encounter the final words. She wondered if the scribe would end with a prayer, a warning, or a blessing. Her mind drifted to Michael again, imagining him not as a distant figure, but as a silent guardian who might be watching even now. She realized how vast and mysterious the cosmos was, and how comforting it felt to believe that good was not alone in its vigil. On the final page, the manuscript offered a blessing of its own. It encouraged readers, whoever they might be, in whatever age they lived, to carry forward the lessons learned. It asked them to remember the sacrifices of angels, the courage of righteous humans, and the mercy that guided the Creator's hand. The text concluded with a simple exhortation: go forth and bear witness to truth. Cultivate kindness, and guard against despair. For though darkness may rise, a guardian stands ready, and your choices shape the dawn. With these words, the scribe's voice fell silent, leaving only the faint crackle of torchlight in the hidden chamber. Miriam closed her eyes. The manuscript had ended, but its resonance continued in her mind. She felt humbled, as though she had brushed against eternity. No matter the scholarly debates to come, no matter how critics might challenge authenticity, she knew these words carried a moral power. David respectfully lowered his flashlight. The air around them seemed lighter, as if the heavy dust had settled into quiet acceptance. They had uncovered not just an artifact, but a guide, a message from a distant past to a future still unfolding. Miriam gently rewrapped the scroll in protective cloth. She would see it preserved, translated fully, studied by experts. But she also understood that its greatest value might be in inspiring hearts. Legends of Michael and the Nephilim, of flood and redemption, now felt more relevant than ever. They prepared to leave the chamber. Miriam climbed the old ladder first, David steadying it below. As they emerged into daylight, the sounds of the modern world returned, but neither of them felt the same. They carried with them a story that transcended time. And in that story, they found hope. Back in their makeshift field laboratory, Miriam and David carefully photographed each page of the manuscript. The team's equipment hummed quietly, capturing high-resolution images. They sealed the original scroll in a climate-controlled case, preparing it for transport to a secure facility. News of their find would require careful handling, scholarly review, and perhaps guarded public announcements. Miriam composed a preliminary report. She avoided making grand claims, focusing instead on describing the artifact's provenance, materials, and script. She noted its thematic parallels with known ancient texts. In her personal notes, however, she wrote candidly of its transformative content and the way it wove together legends, scripture, and moral instruction. David processed the digital images, marveling at the clarity of the text. He made a backup copy immediately, saving it to multiple drives. The last thing they wanted was to lose something of this magnitude to a technical glitch. Later, as they sipped coffee under a canvas awning, Miriam sighed. This could rewrite parts of our understanding of religious history. David nodded. We must be careful. Some will reject it as a hoax or question its authenticity. We have to authenticate it with carbon dating, linguistic analysis, and compare it to known inscriptions. Miriam agreed. But regardless of external validation, I know what I felt reading it. It spoke to something universal. David smiled. I felt it too. It's as if it encourages us not to rely solely on angels or miracles, but to remember that goodness always has allies, seen and unseen. As the sun dipped, they pondered how best to share their discovery. They imagined conferences, debates, and eventually, perhaps a published edition. Some would be inspired. Others might be skeptical. In any case, the manuscript's voice would not be silenced. In the days that followed, Miriam shared preliminary findings with a small circle of trusted colleagues. Experts in ancient languages examined the script and were astonished by its age and complexity. A paleographer confirmed it was genuinely ancient, predating known religious texts. A materials scientist confirmed the parchment and inks were consistent with a roughly 3,000-year-old origin. Word began to spread quietly through academic channels, whispered discussions in faculty lounges, encrypted emails between research institutions, and late-night phone calls hinted at a revolutionary discovery. Some scholars were excited, others wary. If genuine, this manuscript would bridge gaps in textual traditions that had puzzled religious historians for centuries. A senior biblical scholar named Dr. Rosenbaum flew in to review the text. He spent hours silently reading the digital facsimiles, occasionally muttering to himself and scribbling notes. When he emerged, his face was pale, his voice hushed. This changes so much, he said, and yet it confirms what many mystics and theologians have long suspected. Miriam and David watched carefully as their colleagues struggled to integrate these revelations. Some wanted immediate publication. Others urged caution. The tension was understandable. They held evidence of a narrative that connected ancient myths, apocryphal sources, and canonical scriptures into a coherent tapestry. Meanwhile, Miriam tried to maintain a balanced perspective. She reminded everyone that interpretation was key, whether one read it literally, symbolically, or as a product of ancient spiritual imagination. Its value lay in the moral truths it conveyed, that good battles evil, that unseen guardians exist, and that human choices matter. As the scholarly debate intensified, Miriam felt Michael's quiet presence lingering in her thoughts. Perhaps the archangel was pleased that the story he helped shape was finding new life in a skeptical age. As weeks passed, Miriam and David oversaw initial steps to secure the manuscript's preservation. International experts would soon arrive, bringing advanced technology for non-invasive analysis. Discussions began about whether to release selected translations. Religious leaders from various traditions expressed interest, some with hope, others with apprehension. Late one evening, Miriam stood alone with the sealed manuscript case. She felt a quiet reverence, as if standing before a silent teacher. She thought back to the manuscript's central figure, Michael. He was not merely a character in a dusty tale. He represented a force of integrity and protection that transcended time. She imagined how people around the world might react to this new source. For some, it might reaffirm their faith. For others, it could challenge them to re-examine their beliefs. And for many, It might open hearts to the idea that our world is interwoven with hidden battles and subtle guides. David found Miriam later, and together they gazed at a night sky filled with stars. If these angels stand guard, he mused, maybe they still watch over us now. Maybe in our darkest moments, they nudge us toward kindness, understanding, and courage. Miriam smiled. Perhaps the manuscript was revealed now because we need that reminder. In a world filled with violence, division, and cynicism, the idea of benevolent guardians offered solace. Though skeptics would argue it was all myth, Miriam knew that myths often contained profound truths. The manuscript's account of the ancient war, the flood, and Michael's interventions illuminated a timeless struggle, one that played out both in the heavens and in the human heart. They left the lab, turning off lights and locking doors. Inside the sealed case, the manuscript rested. Mission accomplished, its message delivered across eons. Months later, a carefully vetted translation of selected passages found its way into scholarly journals. Immediate reactions varied. Some theologians embraced the text as a missing puzzle piece. Others dismissed it as an elaborate forgery, though no one could explain how such advanced forgery techniques would pass material analysis. Secular historians were intrigued by references to long-lost cultures and cataclysmic floods that matched geological data. Linguists praised the manuscript's consistency with Proto-Semitic dialects. Interfaith dialogues flourished, with rabbis, priests, imams, and spiritual teachers comparing the manuscript's revelations to their own traditions. Meanwhile, Miriam gave a closed-door lecture to a group of graduate students. She emphasized critical thinking and cautioned against sensationalism. The manuscript, she said, should not be a weapon for religious arguments or a trophy for any ideology. Its strength lay in inspiring people to reflect on moral values and the shared human heritage of seeking the divine. In the broader public, rumors and snippets spread on the internet. People debated online forums. YouTube channels discussed the 3,000-year-old Bible, and documentary crews requested interviews. Miriam and David remained measured, neither denying the text's impact nor overstating its significance. Over time, the shockwave of discovery settled into a gentle current. The manuscript's narrative wove itself into human consciousness. It would likely never become mainstream scripture, but its stories would influence thinkers, artists, and believers. Some painted murals depicting Michael's battle against giants. Others wrote poems about angels in the shadows of history. A few skeptics turned agnostic, pondering mysteries they once dismissed. In the end, the manuscript served as a catalyst. It reminded the world that beyond the veil of myth and faith lies a realm of infinite possibilities and truths waiting to be rediscovered. Over the following years, the manuscript quietly shaped ongoing scholarship. It inspired conferences on angelology and demonology that examined ancient texts beyond canonical boundaries. Dialogue between religious and secular communities became more nuanced. While not all agreed on the manuscript's authenticity or interpretation, its existence encouraged respectful exploration. In a small chapel, a priest preached about hope and perseverance, mentioning the newly found text as an example of timeless truths hidden in dusty corners of history. In a secular ethics class, a professor used the manuscript's moral lessons to illustrate the importance of confronting evil with courage and compassion. Artists composed symphonies inspired by the great battles against the Nephilim. Writers penned novels that wove the angelic narrative into contemporary allegories. Filmmakers imagined epic scenes of Michael's sword blazing in primeval darkness. In subtle ways, the manuscript enriched cultural imagination. Miriam and David occasionally received letters from strangers who had learned of their discovery. Some thanked them for revealing a story that rekindled their faith. Others requested guidance in understanding its meaning. A few criticized them, claiming the text confused established doctrines. Through it all, Miriam and David remained calm. They knew that truth often came in layers and perspectives. Together, they continued their archaeological work, uncovering artifacts of ancient civilizations. They viewed each find through a richer lens now, remembering that behind broken pottery and faded murals might lie stories of cosmic significance. The manuscript had taught them humility, recognizing how much we still have to learn. In quiet moments, Miriam recalled the silent underground chamber, the dusty air, and the thrill of opening that old chest. She remembered how the manuscript's words flowed into her mind, connecting heaven and earth with a timeless thread of purpose and hope. In the fullness of time, the manuscript became part of human heritage. It never replaced established scriptures, nor did it vanish into obscurity. It occupied a unique niche, a bridge linking ancient traditions, shedding light on puzzling references, and inspiring a broader understanding of humanity's spiritual journey. Michael's name, once just another angelic title in religious texts, now carried fresh depth. People who read the manuscript's translations saw him as a steadfast guardian who overcame unimaginable foes to protect the human story. He was both warrior and guide, a symbol that even in cosmic struggles, love and justice prevail. Miriam, now older and more reflective, occasionally revisited the manuscript's images. She smiled at the thought that somewhere, out of mortal sight, Michael might still stand watch. Perhaps he hovered over quiet streets, unseen, encouraging someone to show kindness. Perhaps he lent courage to a broken heart or whispered insight into a troubled mind. The world continued spinning, faced with its own modern giants, war, poverty, injustice. Yet the manuscript's lesson lingered. Evil could be confronted and overcome, and angels might be closer than we think, whether one interpreted it literally or metaphorically. The story reminded humanity that they were not alone. As the years passed, new discoveries would be made, new texts uncovered, and new debates sparked. But this particular manuscript, rescued from an ancient chest beneath collapsed pillars, ensured that the saga of Michael and the Nephilim would never fade completely. It would remain a testament that, in the tapestry of existence, unseen battles shape our world, and unseen heroes guide our way. With that knowledge held gently in the collective memory, humanity pressed forward, hopeful and watchful, forever changed by the whispers of an ancient, angelic truth. And there you have it, the untold story of an epic battle between celestial forces and monstrous giants, hidden in the pages of a forgotten manuscript. This story makes you wonder what other secrets are waiting to be unearthed, doesn't it? If you found this fascinating, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share this video with someone who loves unraveling ancient mysteries. And before you go, let us know in the comments, what's one ancient story you think deserves a closer look? Until next time, keep exploring the unknown